Anchor and Marina, Sheboygan, Michigan. Represent. Got some of these incredibly delicious cherries with a little skull swizzle stick. That's how my baby do. So good. So good. All right. Let's go. So tonight, after the reading, I'm going to give you a sneak preview of what Rob and I have been working on for the covers for Slay Book 1 and Book 2, which we haven't written yet. And then there's I have a new story coming out in an anthology, and I will show you the cover of that and tell you where you can go pre-order it and get it. Ross the Boss, what's up? How are you? The throat is trashed, y'all. Trashed. All right, let's get this counter off, and it's time to go get into the reading. First of all, got to blow the snoot. I'm classy. It's one thing people say about me is how fucking classy I am. Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Yes. Little PV James Keeling on my titty right here. There we go. Love you too, Ross. All right. That's volume looks pretty good. Let me move the chat room away from my immediate view because Rob Otto is not to be trusted with the funny commentary. He says stuff and it cracks me up in the middle of the damn show. Okay, we got Slay up. Let's rock and roll. One more sip. You're right, Rob. I got class coming out my ass. And welcome to Slay episode number 31. This one is titled Light 'em Up. Let me get you caught up on the story so far, and then we're going to dive right into it. Previously on Slay. Butch followed Billy back to the old stone church and was able to lead his Rolling Outlaw gang members into the entryway. Dragon the dog turned into Dragon the dragon, but Butch used a meshwork ring given to him by Boss Hawg to bind the protector. Magda and Ariella came out of the nave to face off against Butch and his men. Ariella used her threadwork necklace to make the Outlaws' guns heat up to the point where the men could not hold them. Meanwhile, Mercutio led Lincoln through the tunnels beneath Callista's building. The unlikely duo is about to take on the Flechette sisters and their big cats in a skirmish that could determine the course of the battle. How about we do this the easy way, Butch? You punks get face down on the floor, or you can try me, and I will unscrew your head and shit down your neck. Magda had to hand it to herself. She sounded pretty convincing. In truth, she was scared. 12 men. They looked normal, but Butch had taken out Dragon with no effort. Did he have more meshwork? You must be Magda, Butch said. The contract is on Lil B, not you or your friend. You two sit down, shut up. Maybe you live to see tomorrow. Magda had to hand it to Butch. He sounded convincing, too. She saw through his emotional mask, saw the fear within, the confusion. All of this was new to him. Even newer to his boys. They stared, wide-eyed and afraid, most unable to take their eyes off of the 15 feet of jet black luong bound up like an eel in a fisherman's golden net. Where had Butch acquired the protector trap? Who had given it to him? Dante? One of the many bounty hunters? And if it had been one of the hunters, was that killer on the way? I will knock you the fuck out, Magda said. All of you, and I ain't paying for your dental work. She could see the heat rising from the guns the men had dropped. Ariella's meshwork. Sorry about that. The lawyer wasn't sure how long she could keep the spell up, though. Magda hoped the weapons weren't hot enough to start cooking off rounds. Knock me out? Butch said. I don't think so. Money, Balake, get at it. Magda didn't know which man was which. One was squat and stocky. Magda didn't know which was which. One was squat and stocky, looked like he had knockout punches for days. The other was taller, skinny, with a receding hairline and a big, gleaming forehead. The stocky one ran at Magda, intent on tackling her. Magda whipped her bowstaff's lower end up in a sharp arc, catching him under the chin. He stumbled, his momentum carrying him forward. Magda twisted, smashing the other end of the staff into his temple. She sidestepped as he tumbled past and hit the floor face first. The skinny, balding one came at her next, hands up, trying to grab for her quarterstaff. Dumb move. Magda thrust forward, jamming the tip into his mouth. The man's head snapped back. He dropped like a bag of dead fish. One of his teeth skittered across the stone floor. "Told you, Butch," Billy said. "I told you don't want to mess with Magda." Lil B remained at Dragon's side, his arms around the netted creature as if somehow he could protect the protector. Dragon was bound so tight he could not move. Butch's veil of confidence faltered. The squat one wasn't moving. Big forehead rolled to hands and knees, blood dripping from his mouth. "Boys," Butch said, "all of you, rush this bitch and end this." The men did not move. Butch's expression shifted. He was uncomfortable feeling afraid, but being angry was clearly a place where he felt right at home. "I took out a dragon," he said. "If y'all don't kill this fat-ass, scarred-up, mess-smoking, pajama-wearing bitch, I will release that dragon, use more magic to blink my ass out of here, and leave your cowardly asses to those big teeth." The men traded quick glances at each other, at Butch, at the bound-up dragon, and finally, at Magda. 9 men moved toward her, slow and cautious, spacing themselves out to cover the widest possible area. 9 men, 9 sets of hands. Did any of those hands have claws? Not 9 men, 9 demons, laughing and sneering. 9 demons and 1 Umatakan. Hulking, long arms and legs covered in mismatched, piecemeal armor gathered from the corpses of the dozen Rixators it had killed over the years. The beast's warhammer smashing home, breaking bones, sending her tumbling. Vestinian's threadwork, catching her while she was down, holding her, pinning her in place as she tried to breathe through the piercing pain of broken ribs and a fractured sternum. One hard, strong, clawed Umatakan hand, ripping her helmet free, gripping the top of her head, holding it still. Then the other hand, the claws, raking down her face, raking slow, skin ripping, claw tips slicing through her temporalis muscle, scraping against her skull, supinoid bone, then sphenoid, then hooking on her zygomatic arch, only for a moment, then crunching past, kicking out little chips of bone as they came free and gouged her zygomaticus minor and major. The blood, both running down her face and leaking through her cheek to spread its coppery taste across her tongue. "Magda!" The shout came from somewhere else, some time else, muffled and thick and echoing. "Magda, get up!" Get up? Was she down? The Umatakan claws sliced her anew, and just as she had back then, Magda Magdalene's soul shriveled up on itself and crawled somewhere within her to a place as distant and cold as the folds of a Rixator's cloak. Once upon a time, Callista's building might have been productive, making and shipping this widget or that across the Midwest. Perhaps the country. Perhaps even the world. Back a century ago, when Lumencia was an important city and not a broken Rust Belt rivet. The loading dock had 4 stalls, where semi-trucks could back up to the raised concrete platform for loading and unloading. Brick walls, chipped and cracked, and in some spots, simply crumbling into clay powder. Iron beam ceiling, rusted and filled with cobwebs. Open only on the street entrance, the 3 walls mostly hid the interior from sight. Mostly. If Lincoln used an explosive bolt and some non-enlightened passerby saw it, that might draw jerboas. And it might not. In the center of the empty loading dock stood Veronica and Betty, their broadswords sheathed, each holding a throwing spike in her hand. Veronica's giant panther, with black fur that matched Betty's hair, and Veronica's, with the tawny shade close to Betty's blonde tresses, sniffed at the bricks, undoubtedly trying to find the very secret doors Mercutio had said were on the left wall. 2 thugs with AK-47s held low stared out into the street. The burly guy with a battle axe and the shorter dude with a submachine gun each followed one of the Panthers. Lincoln's goal was to take out at least one of the sisters and reduce the bounty hunter numbers. Hit them quick, then fade out before their numbers could overwhelm him. Easier said than done. Magda had recalibrated the crossbow's scope. Lincoln didn't need time on the range to know it was dead accurate. That was how Magda rolled. Yes, an explosive bolt was worth the risk, but it wasn't the first one he would fire. A bolt charmed with no heal meant a shot that would kill a normal person might very likely have the same lethal result on an enlightened. The dampening fields meant the Flechette sisters couldn't detect him, and they probably wouldn't sense the thread when Lincoln activated the bolts. A box truck turned down the street, bounced through potholes as it came closer. It would cross in front of the loading dock, blocking it from view. "Merc, get ready. We go in when that truck passes by." Lincoln leveled the crossbow over the dumpster's corner and sighted in on Betty. Blondie's time had come. "Apertum vulnus," he said. The loaded bolt flickered with a salt and pepper energy. When the truck was a few feet from crossing in front of the loading dock... that's messed up, guys. Try that again. When the truck was a few feet... When the truck was a few feet from passing by the loading dock, Lincoln pulled the trigger. Betty and Veronica both heard the whoomp of the bowstring. Both reacted by ducking and turning toward the sound, which Lincoln had accommodated for when he had sighted in. The Flechettes were fast, but not fast enough. At 370 feet per second, the 22-inch-long bolt crossed the street in an instant. He'd aimed for Betty's sternum. With her crouch, the charmed bolt punched through the right side of her throat and embedded in the brick wall behind her. He had missed an instant kill shot by less than an inch. The truck passed by the loading dock as Lincoln yanked the bowstring back, cocked it, and dropped in a second bolt, a combination action he performed in less than a second. "Ignis," he said. The bolt glowed green. The instant the truck's rear moved past the loading dock, Lincoln pulled the trigger. As the bolt flew, he had a moment to see that Betty was down, Veronica was moving to kneel beside her, the big cats were rushing to her as well, and the 4 human men had barely reacted. The bolt hit the loading dock's back wall and erupted in a blinding wave of green flame. The explosion caught the men flat-footed, knocking them down. Betty threw herself atop of Veronica. The big cats tensed up, ducked their heads against the bursting conflagration. Lincoln rushed forward, crossing the street, sliding the crossbow into his cloak as he drew his sword and his hatchet. He heard Mercutio behind him, following close behind as he'd been told. The loading dock was a boxed-in cloud of billowing smoke and whirling dust. Lincoln moved right, needing to draw the bad guys to him. Green flame flickered here and there, pulsing the hectic haze with emerald warmth. One of the men, the one with the submachine gun, was fast to his feet, rising just as Lincoln whipped down Bastard Maker, driving the ancient hatchet through the man's collarbone and shoulder blade. Without breaking stride, Lincoln yanked the hatchet free and kept moving, intent on circling around to the back of the loading dock to reach Mercutio on the left side. The Black Panther shot out of the dust and smoke, snarling, eager, and angry. The beast pounced, 10 feet of muscled killer with amber eyes and white teeth. Lincoln thrust Tizona's tip at the cat's face. The panther stopped short and reared back, swatting at the long blade. Lincoln kept moving toward the rear wall. Somewhere in the green-tinged cloud of dust, one of the AK-47 wielding thugs opened up, hopefully firing more in panic than strategy. The brick walls chipped and powdered in rust-colored blossoms as the 7.62 by 39 millimeter bullets hit home. Lincoln reached the back wall and cut left, swirling his cloak about him, using it to blend in with the smoke. He felt, rather than saw, a spike bounce off his right shoulder armor. Veronica had just missed a kill shot of her own. A sense of the light changing, a shadow reaching, an irresistible force hurtling headlong toward him. Lincoln dropped and rolled, turning as he did, swiping up with Tizona in a vicious sideways arc. The meshwork blade cut through the leaping panther's belly, ripping flesh and intestines, the tip bouncing off the inside of the beast's spine. A horrid howl of supernatural agony. The beast crashed into the dirty concrete floor, making the dust clouds swirl anew. Lincoln came out of the roll onto his feet. He saw Mercutio, a different medallion in his left hand, standing in front of a dark space in the brick wall. He had gotten the secret door open. The medallion glowed with a metallic white field that seemed to hold the other panther, the tawny one, at a short distance. Paws swiped fast and hard at Mercutio's head, but the cat couldn't quite reach him. "Lincoln, hurry!" A second spike smashed into Lincoln's leg. This time, he felt the point penetrate his armor, poke into the meat of his thigh. He stumbled, and when he did, he saw a man ablaze with green flame swinging a battle axe at his head. A sound like a light yet bass-heavy snapping of the fingers, 3 of them in a row, so close they were almost one sound. The axe wielder's head came apart as 3 meshwork rounds tore through his skull, splattering Lincoln with gore. The man fell, dead, before he hit the floor. At the secret door, Mercutio still held the medallion, struggling to hold the panther at bay. In his other hand, the suppressed FNX 45 pistol that had quite possibly saved Lincoln's life. The panther again reached for Mercutio, trying to grab him, pull him in, and land a skull-crushing bite. The creature roared with feral ferocity. Lincoln dove, tackling Mercutio and driving him through the opening space. "Shut it!" Lincoln shouted, before they landed and tumbled down what felt like stone steps. Lincoln rolled to his knees in the narrow stairway, saw the tawny cat trying to squeeze in after them, backlit by the fading yet flickering green flames, its body wiggling to fit into the confined space. Mercutio called out magic words in a language Lincoln did not recognize. The panther seemed to realize it had fucked up royally. It scrambled backward, but the narrow space slowed it. The hidden door slid sideways like a horizontal guillotine. As the green light narrowed to a vertical strip, Lincoln saw the door slam crunch through the panther, just behind its shoulders. The door thudded to a halt, dropping the passage into darkness. Lincoln heard the panther's front half thud to the ground. "Fiat lux!" Mercutio's right gauntlet glowed with a lavender light. "Thank you, Lincoln. I was almost done for." Only the steps, 15 of them, were stone. Packed dirt made up the narrow walls and floor leading away from the steps. "This leads to the club? Doesn't seem like Callista's style." "We're not in that passage," Mercutio said. "The panther blocked it. I couldn't get to it. This passageway leads to the other place." At the top of the steps, the closed, dark wall shuddered with a mighty pounding. "I will kill you, Lincoln Franks! Jimbo, blow it!" Betty's voice, muffled by old brick and dense meshwork, but not so much so that Lincoln didn't hear her grief and her rage. He shoved Mercutio down the passageway. "Move! She's coming!" The passage was only wide enough for one. Lincoln followed Mercutio, whose gauntlet illuminated the dirt walls in a pale purple. "You won't like this room," Mercutio said. "Try to be chill about it. You—" The rest of his sentence vanished as the door to the secret passageway blew inward in a deafening, dense shower of bouncing, tumbling brick shrapnel. "Magda, get up!" She didn't seem to hear Billy's screams. What had happened? He'd watched her dust 2 men, then she just dropped. Magda lay on the floor, curled into a ball, her trembling hands covering her face. Her kung fu staff lay next to her, the butt of her kung fu staff lay next to her, the blood of Balake and Money Monday streaking the wood. Billy did not know what to do. Butch and his men stood there, staring. Ariella stepped back into the nave. She gripped her necklace anew, reached a hand toward Magda. Magda slid across the floor and through the doors, which slammed shut. Billy heard the sizzle of burning thread as she sealed it tight. The sound was like the snapping of a hypnotist's fingers, bringing Butch out of his confusion. "Get that door open," Butch said. "Now." 3 of the Rolling Outlaws ran to the nave doors, rattled them, pounded on them. Billy could see the hastily cast threadwork. It wasn't the same caliber of magic as the front door, and it wouldn't last long under the assault. Money Monday got to his knees. Butch helped him to his feet. "You okay, Money?" "No!" Money rubbed his cheek where Magda had connected with the staff. "It's like getting hit in the head with a baseball bat. Butch, I don't want to be around dragons and magic and shit no more. Who knows what else in this spooky old place? Can't we just kill Billy and get the hell out of here?" A few nods, a few yeahs from the other men. "Not yet," Butch said. "Not till Boss Hawg gives us the go-ahead." Boss Hawg. That boar-headed bounty hunter in the white suit. Was that where Butch got the ring that bound Dragon? That ring. The gold wire. Metal and meshwork both. Billy saw the threads within the wire sparkling and thin and tough. Tougher, even, than the front door's seal spell. Could Billy tear that wire the way he had torn the seal? He didn't know. Billy slowly petted Dragon, feeling anew the sharpness of the golden net. With the help of 2 outlaws, Balake got to his feet. Blood smeared his lips and chin. "That fucking Biff," he said, a lisp in his voice thanks to his missing front teeth. "Fucked up my mouth." "You 3, get that door open or else," Butch said. "Balake, get your shit together. Have the boys start searching the place. Pajamas and little black dress are in here somewhere. Find them." "Will do." Balake wiped blood from his split lips. "I'm gonna kill that Biff." He told the other Rolling Outlaws which way to go, sending some down the hallway that led to the bathroom, others to the stairs, that led to the upper floors. Butch again pulled out his cell phone. He tapped the screen, put the phone to his ear. "Fuck," he said. "Voicemail again. Can't get through." "Just shoot him," Money said. "Why are we fucking with this? Shoot him and let's go." Butch looked at Billy. Billy saw the anger in the man's eyes, the hatred, pure and intense. "Not yet," he said. "This is just a stepping stone, Money. We got to do it right if we want to level up. But that don't mean we can't get some satisfaction while we wait. Stand up, Lil B. It's time for you to pay for what you did to Big Hack." That was Slay episode number 31. Light 'em up. Be back next week with Slay episode number 32. Good day, sirs and or ma'ams. There we go. All right. Let's get the headphones back on. I may have to re-record that. I screwed up something. The concept was Lincoln's supposed to shoot as the truck is passing and shoot the bolt right ahead of the truck so they can't see him, and they're dealing with that. Then when the truck passes by, he puts another round right past it, and I kind of screwed that up. So I think I will, I'm glad you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I think I will have to redo that one. Plus, voice is not good. No, not good today at all. So, you know what? Just knock it out tomorrow. No big deal. Hope you guys enjoyed it. It's all violence from here on out. Yeah, it's very nice. Hey, Rob, what's going on? So, as I mentioned, Ariel Girl herself is in the chat room. So we are going to cover something we talked about last week. Yeah, check out, got that whole thing in a half an hour. Very nice, very smooth. We talked about Slay covers, and people were asking last week, what are we going to do with Rob Otto's name on the cover? We also have Rob Tinarella in the chat room. Rob Otto is in Slay. So we're going to take a look at that now. Rob and I worked on that this week or last week, and we got it figured out. Let me go to it. So we're going with a real minimalist approach with these covers, because more and more, book marketing is seeing books at super, super tiny sizes. And I'm sure Rob's going to make a joke about my wiener. Go ahead, Rob. It's fine. Super little, minuscule, tiny sizes. And when that's the case, you have to have the letters and title and author names have to be of a certain size so they're still legible at that small size. And the way digital marketing of books works now, actual pictures in the book cover are sort of going away. A lot of the hard people still do it, but when you see those covers shrunk down, all that art just becomes a hodgepodge and you can't see it. So you're missing out on that original lovely thing of like, that's a cool cover. Let me check it out. So let's go to here. So this is, and you will not be surprised by book one, this is what the cover for book one is going to be. Rob and I worked this out. Slay, obviously, there's my name, with Rob Otto, because Rob is helping with the plot and the overall structure of the whole series and all of the connections. And it would not be the story it's going to be without his input. And I'm handling the day-to-day writing tasks. So we thought that with was a little bit better than and, but who knows? We may change our mind before it's all over. And then Rob and I have a lot of discussions. They're very important discussions and they're very dear to our hearts. We share our emotions and we cover the things that need to be covered. We also talked about, we kind of want this to have that feel of the 80s, 90s action adventure series like Lethal Weapon and things like that. So we went back and looked at all the big action adventure series of those era and all the Mel Gibson movies and our Schwarzenegger movies, Stallone movies, all that great stuff. Try and figure out how we're going to approach book 2, 3, 4, and 5. Because book 1 is just Slay. And book 2 is going to be, we're going to just do it just like many of the movie posters. Lethal Weapon's the biggest influence, I think, on where we're going with this. Keep it simple. So that title is still very, very legible at very small sizes. And then we just add a title on the bottom, and there's going to be Slay 2, 3, 4, and 5, each with its own little tagline. Rob, cigarette penis size. This is not very nice. Each with its own little tagline. And we still got some figuring out to do how that's going to work in Audible and Amazon. And Ariel Girl and I's business, Empty Set's business, is almost all audiobook sales. That's just the place we have wound up. That's where we do really well, is on Audible. And we sell some Kindles here and there. We're going to see how that goes when we introduce Shakedown. And we have the guys at Athon who are much better at digital book marketing than we are, getting behind all that thing. Also coming up, I forgot the publication date, but let's take a look. I will have a story in Joe Ledger Unbreakable, another Jonathan Mayberry collection. My story features Joe Ledger's cat. And I'm quite pleased with it. If you guys like my Aliens Phalanx, no, the Aliens Bug Hunt story, something about prey. Hey, can you look that up in the chat room? I can't remember the name of it right now. I was able to write from the perspective of a xenomorph. Super fun. Loved it. If you guys haven't read that story, you should go get that book. It's a blast. And this one, completely from the point of view of Joe Ledger's cat. There's very little Joe Ledger in it. It's mostly the cat being a badass. So I think Dangerous Prey. Thank you, Sean Dyer. That's it. But this Joe Ledger Unbreakable is now available for pre-order, at least on Amazon, maybe on Audible. But if you're into Joe Ledger and you like the crossovers I've done in the past with Jonathan Mayberry, you will like this one as well. And if you like cats, well, look at you. You like cats. A little frisky. Little giblets. You are going to absolutely love it if you like cats. I don't do a lot of cat-centric work. I'm a dog guy. But those of you who like cats will probably dig this quite a bit. Let's go back home, back to Maine. All right. So that is largely what I got for the show. Got 27 minutes to go as I rely heavily on my co-host. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to questions in the chat room. Baby, if you got any questions down there, feel free. Sean, I don't know if it's the Pokemon money symbol, but there are a lot of money symbols on the cover. Let's go back to it. What I've tried to do, though, is for people who do like book cover art, is all these little icons in the middle here. They're through the whole thing. You can see the icons through all the letters. They are a whole bunch of monsters, a whole bunch of weapons, a whole bunch of money symbols, and a whole bunch of drugs, and a whole bunch of people getting obliterated, throwing up, drinking, doing pot, like the kids do the pot. And then the second one, it's all the same symbols. We just keep those same symbols. So people who really, really like zooming in on stuff, there's a lot of really fun stuff to see in there. All right, here we go. Babe, you can text me questions if you want. I got that right in front of me. I just booked a couple of podcasts I'm going to be on for October 3rd when Shakedown comes out. One of them is definitely a throwback to the olden days. We are going to be on Great Night podcast with Brian Brushwood and Justin Robert Young. That, if you guys remember back in the day, the few times I got to be in the Night Attack podcast that these guys did, they are a couple of unheralded comedic geniuses and improv. I'm brilliant at spur of the moment improv. And the 3 times I've been in that show is probably, I've laughed harder than any other time in my life. No offense, Rob. These guys are really good. So I'm super excited about that. And we got one more I will tell you about somewhere down the road. Tim asks, when will The Gangster be published in paperback? We're sort of working that out right now. We're working on Ross the Boss. The Rebecca to my Quentin is a Sigler for sure. We haven't got this figured out yet, but the goal is we've got a lot of fans over in Europe and Australia and New Zealand who want print books, but buying books from America, the shipping is like 2 or 3 times the cost of the book itself. So what we're starting to look into is the print on demand services often have production facilities on each continent. And like there'll be several in Europe, maybe a couple in Australia. So with the Gangster paperback, we're going to try and set that up so that people who are not in the US or Canada can get their own copy of it and it won't cost them an arm and a leg because it'll be actually printed in their country and shipping will be a lot cheaper. That's just the nature of the business. The shipping costs have gone up exponentially. It's completely out of control. So we really can't do all the fun stuff we were able to do 5, 10, 15 years ago. So we're trying to find answers to that. Yeah, The Gangster. All right. I'm keeping an eye on the phone in case A has any questions there. I got to run nose, you guys. Had a gig this weekend. It was very fun at Navajo Live in San Diego. And I caught a cold. A says, can I elaborate or give a human analogy on why there's a schism between the key rebels and the Alliance? Absolutely. Can do. In the Galactic Football League, you've got your key rebel association, and then you have the key empire. And the rebel association is a break off from the key empire. And I think it's safe to say at this point, I believe that goes all the way back to when the Givers arrived on the key homeworld. And the Givers are the species that came from another galaxy to spread the wealth of knowledge of faster than light travel and other things in the Milky Way galaxy. And everything was going just fine. They were teaching other cultures high tech and how to have faster than light travel until they got to the key. And then once the key got the faster than light travel, they killed and ate the Givers, and that stopped that cycle right there. But that is the reason that the key are what comes out of the portal in Infected and Contagious and in Pandemic, in the Infected trilogy. And it's the cost of that form of transportation was so massive that for the key to do that one invasion attempt of the Earth basically bankrupted the planet's entire economy. So if you look in Earth's history at cultures that have overspent on defense spending and gone massively in debt, you can't spend so much on the military that it just crushes your whole economy and your whole culture. That's what happened with the key. And then they sort of they had several revolutions, sort of went into a dark age, a lot of strongmen power plays, things like that. And then the rest of the history, it's all on the Siglerpedia. If you go to siglerpedia.scottsigler.com, you can find the Galactic Football League timeline, and you can read up on when the key rebels split from the key. So they are predominantly the key species, both sides, but have about as much in common as, say, the United States and, Latvia. It's U.S., China, two completely very, very different cultures, and definitely not going to be working together anytime soon. Question from Mike. Was that question from Mike Wers? All right. Back to Maine. Yeah, Rob, Merciless had a gig. I was a roadie. I did roadie stuff, bro. But we'll get some pictures for that up next week. Babe, if you could make a note, we'll get some pictures from the gig up. Pretty fun. Sean Dyer asks, I may have asked this before, but after the GFL saga is complete and published in its entirety, will you also publish a series background information in subform? That will probably be on Siglerpedia. All the background info is going to be on Siglerpedia. Right now we have two sources. We have Siglerpedia, which is public, and then we got the Secret Agent Wiki, which only a handful of people have access to. And that's where I kind of do the works in progress. So there's a ton of info about Slay already up on Siglerpedia. Again, siglerpedia.scottsigler.com. And you can kind of get caught up on a lot of things Slay, see who some of the characters are. And we'll develop that more as the series goes. So off to a big start. And I also use that as my brain to keep track of all this, because I've never been detail-oriented. Shockingly, if you read my work, I'm not very detail-oriented, and it's really only gotten worse as I have gotten older and older. So let's get rid of this. Boom. So I use that a lot. So I'll stop writing, write down a character, what kind of guns does the character have, what is the description of the character, and then instead of having to scroll back through many, many pages of text, copious amounts of fiction, I just can go to the wiki, look them up, and check it out from there. So that's where the background info, there's already background info, a ton there. You can go look that up. I doubt we'll be publishing that in print. We may at some point publish all of the color inserts from the different hardcovers. We may put those together in one package, and likely that'll only be a digital-only package because that'd be prohibitively expensive to print. But if we do that, we may throw the timeline and everything else in there. Beth, have a great week. Love you. All right, new question. How do you balance making demands on the reader with taking care of the reader? First of all, fuck you. Read my shit. That's the way it goes. I don't take care of nobody. What's up? That's a constant dance. How much you expect the reader to retain, how much you want to remind the reader of stuff that they probably know because they just read it a couple chapters ago, and how much you want to spoon feed the reader all the time. So there's not any hard and fast correct way to do that. You get a lot of reminders to the reader when you start a new book. So when book 2 of Slay comes out, I'll redescribe everything about Lincoln and Magda and Billy and Vestini and all the other stuff. All of those descriptions kind of need to be touched upon again, which is pretty common in most fiction series. So you really get that big upfront description, and then you have little reminders of it only when it matters. Like, I don't need to tell you Lincoln's wearing a cloak every time he goes into battle, but when he swishes it around himself so he fades in with the smoke, you are reminded of something that you probably already knew. So it's always kind of trying to figure it out. And my general rule of thumb is, if I can't remember something, if I have to go to Siglarpedia to look something up, that means the reader more than likely needs a reminder. And then there's the last part of that is the icing. That's like details about weapons. Like A and I go over this all the time. A could give two shits. It's a pistol. She doesn't care what kind of pistol it is. It's a machine gun. Doesn't give a shit. Doesn't care. Just glazes over all that stuff. But there is a subset of my audience that really loves that stuff and gets into it. And that's the same crossover audience with, Jonathan Mayberry and the Monster Hunter series and all that stuff. So you do got to get the details in there. For some people, you just don't want to go too heavy on the details and bore the readers who don't care about it. Because at the end of the day, what people really care about is characters, emotions, and the interactions and relationships between those characters. If you can do those things right, and you can make those people feel real and come off the page and make it feel like someone that you want to hang out with or someone you know, everything else doesn't really fucking matter. Plots are great. I do very detailed, intricate plots that come together in a big blockbuster ending. But at the end of the day, if you aren't engaged that Magda has severe PTSD and is completely disconnected from the world in the middle of a fight, and you don't have a feeling or emotion elicited by that, then all the plot in the world isn't going to make any difference. A says she wants the guns to be super accurate but not super deep. Ross Boss says, reread the GFL series books more times than I can count because there's a sensory overload of information that I want to remember. Connect back to my theories about book 7 and book 8. It's such a cool feeling to connect the dots. That's wonderful to hear, and that's one of the goals with it. Is I tried to write GFL as, if you just want to do a superficial high-level pass-through, enjoy the games, watch Quentin and Becca and the Tweedy brothers and read the funny lines and everything, that's cool. Look at you. That's fine. You can do that. That's great. And that's a very valid form of entertainment. A lot of people read it just for that. But there is an enormous amount of world building, plot threading, enormous amount of deep character development. And not to toot my own horn, but there's a lot of great stuff in that series that's why there are people who every time a new book comes out, they go back to square one and read all the way through. And that level of reader gets to enjoy those deeper Easter eggs and really gets a different level of enjoyment out of the series. I like you all. I don't care. I don't have a preference. You do whatever you want to do. Okay. Nerd. How are we doing on time? 15 minutes. I didn't have much. This was a longer episode. I thought it was going to take a while. So, don't know what to tell you. These things happen. Anybody else out there having a little cocktail to end their evening? Cheers. We did finish Letterkenny. We're caught up on Letterkenny, which is very sad because that's been a happy evening moment for us. So now we're debating whether we get back on the Marvel MCU and finish up watching Falcon and Winter Soldier, or we go to Better Call Saul, which we know nothing about other than Saul and Mike is in it. Okay, more questions here. Do you hide any aspects in your books that only a few people will find? I think that's probably true. I know there's some serious, Ross, you're in a GFL novella for an English class assignment. That's fantastic. I love it. Yeah, there are some things that I know a lot of people aren't going to catch. For example, all of the 80s and 90s pop culture references and all the lines of dialogue from my favorite movies and all the stuff I put in, I know that's not something everybody's going to catch. And then you got your super fans like John Viscara who recognizes every line the second it comes out and goes and puts it in Siglarpedia with the pop culture references. And so people do catch all of that stuff. The trick is, to me, is not making something so superficial where there isn't that undertow of detail and plot threading and things that's the Easter eggs that reward you. Like, oh, I know what he's talking about. I bet nobody else does, or very few people know. That's a special feeling between creator and consumer. So those are in there. There are several things that I know there's things that I don't think anybody's going to catch. Frankly, we've got stuff in our book packaging design that we've had for 15 years that nobody's caught. So we've gone through a pretty significant effort to seed some things that when people see it, we think they're going to be delighted. And the longer it goes before people recognize these connections, they're going to go back and be like, that motherfucker, that shit was there the whole time, son, the whole time. So, Better Call Saul looks pretty good. I'm very excited about it. But Loki season 2 is coming out, and Loki season 1 broke my enjoyment of the MCU. I was loving all of it through there. And then another question, do you prefer series work or standalones? I would prefer standalones if I could write a standalone. I don't seem to be capable of writing a standalone. I don't know if I've done, the last standalone thing I did was Nocturnal. So I really don't think there's been a whole lot. And the Aliens Phalanx, but I don't count that because that's a media tie-in. So I'm building off of all the great stuff that's come out of that franchise, all the various properties. But we were already planning on getting back to individual books because I have so many cool individual horror books I want to write, kind of change the direction of the career. And then we started talking to Athon about The Crypt, and they wanted a 5-book thing. We're like, I can write 5 books. That's great. So that's a 5-book deal. And then Slay was supposed to sort of be a one-off, and now that's a 5-book series. See, I'm probably going to be in my 70s when I get back to writing actual individual books. But right now, we are just so far behind on everything, and not going to beat around the bush. The ADHD and trying to just sit in the saddle for 4 hours and get the work done I'm supposed to get done is pretty difficult right now. So I don't see us getting to an individual book anytime soon. And I'm not allowed to start anything new. That's the other thing. There's no new because I've got GFL 7 and 8. I've got 4 more Crypt books. And then the Slay books are different because those are kind of as we go podcasting. So we'll just count count one of them. It's like right there. I mean, that's 7 books. And that's probably 3 years if I'm incredibly efficient to get 7 books done. That'll take 3 years. Sorry about the cough. So I don't know when I'll get back to writing individual books, but that'll be a pretty fun vacation when I do. Michael Gray says, Scott hasn't had to stand alone since he married A. Very, very sweet. Sean has a question in the chat. Sean asks, since you've been writing Slay week to week, roughly, do you plan on doing a complete story edit before you publish? And do you anticipate any major changes if so? That's a goddamn good question because I don't know the answer to that yet. We've got an opportunity where all of this audio I've already done is finished, and recording an audiobook is an expense. It's a time commitment and it's an expense before we can put the book out. So what we're probably going to do is finish it. Rob will be the first one to read through the whole manuscript together as one block, find anything that he thinks we need to address that. Then it goes to Big John Viscara to do a continuity edit because that's what John does extraordinarily well. And then we'll take a look at it from that point. I'll say, okay, well, there's this many changes. Do I need to go in and do significant changes to the text? If I have to make significant changes to the text, that's when we'll figure out whether we just need to fix that and re-record the whole thing. I don't know. I'm kind of 50-50 on it because Slay is not meant to be, it's not meant to be one of those incredibly scientific, detail-oriented stories with the really more intricate plot thread. So what we have done so far is absolutely perfectly fine for the marketplace. There's a few corrections, few touch-ups right here and there. I saw like 3 things tonight I have to go fix after the show that I had messed up. So it's very possible we can put this out as it is. Put it out as it is with just a simple copy edit. So instead of a story edit, we may go to continuity and copy edits and be able to put the thing right out. It's meant to be a bit more fun. It's meant to be a bit more freeform. So we will do, we'll see where that goes from there. Okay. We got another question here. Boop, 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 done. CV's got one for me. Shannon Bethany asks, will there be a sequel to Nocturnal or will it be a standalone story? Hence the problem. So Nocturnal, when I wrote Nocturnal, Lloyd Levin, who produced Hellboy, got interested in it right away. And as a movie, so as part of the whole concept of the movie TV show, I worked out a pretty really detailed 5-book arc for Nocturnal that involved graphic novels separate to introduce characters that would percolate up into the main series, video game pitches, characters would percolate up into the main series, the general concept of Nocturnal, but a lot of different characters. That's been over 10 years and we haven't got that TV show made. So I have plans for 4 more novels. Don't know when I will get to them. Ancestor, I have plans for 3 in that, or 2 more in that. A sequel and then a prequel with Clayton Detweiler. So 2 more books there. So even when I write what is a standalone book, I can't stop telling that story in my head. I can't get the story to go away. Kim Hansen asks, do I have any secret projects in the works you can't tell us about? Well, there's Warpath, which I'm working on. So add that to the list of novels I was just telling you about. And I can't tell you what Warpath is about, but Warpath is out there. That's the book I'm working on right now. And other than that, baby, if you can think of any secret projects, just text them to me, and I will get that covered. Let's see. Another question for me. What one thing would you give up to become a better writer? Well, I would sell Rob Otto if that would make me a better writer. No offense, Rob, but guys got to eat. You know what I'm saying? So I'll tell you the one thing I would give up a significant amount or a significant panoply of things if somebody could figure out a way. Oh, thank you, D7. Appreciate that. If somebody could figure out a way that I can just sit down for my 4 hours and write through the whole 4 hours, man, I tell you what, I'd be sitting on mountains of money right now. There's so much going on that I want to thread out, and with the way the marketplace works now, if you can put out books on a pretty regular pace for series, the algorithm kicks in and there's a lot of wonderful things they have for you, but almost done. But it's just really fucking hard, man. It's really fucking hard to stay focused. And the creativity is both the blessing and the curse for that. So I've told you all these series I want to write, all these novels, all these five novel series. I want to do the graphic novel and the games and the comics and everything else that percolates up into it. That all comes because when I'm sitting here working, it's the idea hamster is always just whirling away in that wheel, running like crazy. I'm like, this would be cool. Write that down. This would be cool. Put that book idea. Put that book idea. Put that book idea down. So it's the creativity that allows me to do the job I have, this awesome job that I love, also pulls me away from the thing that I'm actually working on at the moment and being able to focus on that thing. So we're trying to figure that out. I'll be trying to figure that out my whole life long. So I don't know if I'll ever get to it. Tracy Shank asks, are we going to sell Rob Otto whole or in pieces? Depends on the market. Depends on the market, Tracy. If we're going to get a better return on our investment in selling him in parts, we're going to do that. If we're going to get bigger dollar figure for a whole Rob Otto, dead or alive, that's what we're going to do. It's about getting that bank, son. It's about getting that bank. Mark ODS, wait, is there a Siglerverse comic? There's one. There's the Infected, issue 1 of the Infected comic book series, which was supposed to be a 5-book series that covers just Infected. And we got it done with IDW way back in the day. And then the artist who was adapting it, doing the graphics, the lettering, doing everything, kind of lost focus on it and started to miss deadlines. And IDW was very nice about it first. Like, hey, we're late on book 1. When people told us when we told people we'd have in the stores, it's not there. That's not how we roll. You guys need to, sort yourself out. And we were unable to sort ourselves out. So they were like, after we missed the deadline twice for book 2, they were like, okay, listen, we're just going to stop this whole thing. Here's all your stuff back. Come back to us in the future if there's something cool you want to do. But right now, we're out. So we did have one comic, and that was that. I think we're done. We're getting near the end here. Sean says, like it'd be easy to go too far when writing several scenes in Slay. How many scenes did you have to scrap and rewrite for that reason? Only a couple. I think only 2 scenes that didn't make it in, and I bumped those scenes over into season 2. And the fact that I had those scenes done was part of the conversation I had with Rob when we did our writing retreat. Like, I got this. I would love to see this cool shit happen because it's real cool. He's like, all right, let's see if we can factor all of that in. But the plan now is, since we have books 2, 3, and 4, blocked out scene by scene, the challenge becomes just write to the word count specified for that scene, so that I'm not taking something that should be 5 pages to tell the story correctly and writing 28 pages and introducing a ton of new plot threads that I feel compelled to follow up on. And I think we'll leave the reader hanging if we don't do that, because then that just blows the book up like crazy. And now I go back to writing 300,000 word books, and that's not what I do. Good night, Dr. Daniel Baker, PhD. All right, one more question by Jason. I don't see where it is. Hey, you want to help me out with that one? I'll scroll back up. Tilt your head back. Let's finish a cup. A just texted me. I don't see where it is. We'll do one more question. And next week, thanks, Kim. I don't really feel bad. Just a little fried. All right. Question from Jason Brown. The author of the Wheel of Time series died before finishing the series, but he left detailed notes to finish the last book. Does Scott have notes to leave to anyone that might pick up if his series is ever needed? Yeah. Well, Rob and I have books 2, 3, 4 basically completely plotted out, and book 5 mostly plotted out, but we left room in book 5 knowing there are going to be things that percolate up in 2, 3, and 4 that there'll be new things we hadn't anticipated in those books that are super cool, and we know the reader likes, that we'll want to resolve in book 5. So right now, yeah, easily, like, a J.C. Hutchins or a Jonathan Mayberry or anybody like that, if I was to croak tomorrow, if there was an opportunity for them to finish Slay, they could do that. Slay's a little weird, though. Slay's a little weird in that it's got a certain style and pattern of humor to it. And I haven't seen a lot of writers do what I'm doing with it, to be as foul-mouthed and blue with all the contextual and cultural references in there. That's my signature style. So if it was more of a straight fantasy book, I think a lot of people could write it. It would be very challenging. Like if I die and A wants to continue the property, it would be a challenge for A to go out and find who is a writer who can have this kind of jocularity and also this level of violence and severity and some other words that end in itty but not titty. But that's a good word too. And so it'd be very challenging, very challenging. All right. Mug Gray says, that cough and scratchy throat sound like mild ass choking on spit. Yeah, it's a little bit rough. Steve, I think I'm going to have to re-record this one, buddy. I'm going to get that done over the weekend. So a little bit of late weekend work for Steve. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back Wednesday, August 9th for Slay Part 32. I believe my beloved will be right next to me for that one because I should be totally better. Until then, I want you to stay smart. Oh, shit. I forgot, Steve. Oh, fuck. Boom. You guys, Junkies Party Hangout. That is coming up this Saturday. Yeah, coming up this Saturday, 4 to 11 p.m. Steve, the Iceberg, Ricky Berg, does a monumentous task of hosting this for 7 hours. So people can pop in, you can pop out, you can drink, you can not drink. Come in and just watch other people chit-chat. You can chit-chat. It's very fun. It's a bunch of junkies just like you hanging out doing their thing. And let's get rid of that. And, of course, we are 2 SMS subscribers away, ladies and gentlemen, from having 700 people on the SMS list. I think that's a big fat number. So you should text 855-955-5095. Text SIG-TEXT to that number. We're going to wind up getting you a little coupon off somewhere down the road for it. And it's a wonderful way for me to let you know when we've got new stuff out, when books are out, when pre-orders are out, all that good shit. Of course, if you have questions, email those to info@emptyset.com. Steve, I do like how the graphic covers up my face. Look at this. Look at this. You don't have to see my mug at all. And then sign up for the newsletter. If you'd rather get information through the newsletter, scottslittler.com/newsletter. The reason I pimp the newsletter and the text number is because you can't trust these social medias, guys. Look what's going on with Twitter. Look what's happened to Facebook over the past couple of years. It's ridiculous. But these two things, the SMS number and the newsletter, are things that I control. I'm not susceptible to some billionaire's whims on how things get done. So at least sign up for one of those, because then I get to connect with you. I know where you are. I know how to find you, McGillicuddy, and I'm going to find you. All right, let's get rid of that. Until then, I want you to stay smart. I want you to stay science. And for the love of science, stay informed. We'll see you all next week. And I am, got to do a little bit of this. You can all now kiss off into the sky.